Hey Homeworthy, I'm Becca.
And I'm Kurt, and welcome to our first home in Mill Valley, California.
Welcome to our newest Homeworthy series called Our First Home, where we meet young lovebirds who are building their first nest together.
Now we're the Taylors.
We're married.
These couples have both charming love stories and lovely homes.
It just feels great to be not only building a home, but building a life together.
So prepare to be swept off your feet by these incredible pairs and the places they call home. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi, I'm Becca Meyer and I'm an interior designer.
And hey, I'm Kurt Meyer, and I'm a sales executive, and welcome to our first home.
So Kurt and I met about 8 years ago and we've been married just about 2 now, actually over 2. We just had our anniversary. And we met on Hinge in 2016 when dating apps were like a little bit newer, and you had to have a mutual friend to connect, which was kind of crazy. And we actually went to rival colleges, but actually met in San Francisco, even though we both went to school in South Carolina.
Our first date, we went out to a restaurant near where we lived in San Francisco, and we had so much fun. We laughed the whole time. The rest was history.
So we got married in Carmel Valley. It's a super special place to us. We used to take road trips there all the time when we were dating, and it was such a special place for us to bring our families together. We got married at this like awesome property called the Holly Farm, and it was July 2022, so it was a very special time getting like the world back together. And we made it like a whole weekend affair. It was like Thursday through Sunday, so it was just so great to have everyone together.
I feel like the entire thing was curated by her, from the chairs to the tables to the entire experience.
We were designing this house and planning the wedding at the same time, so like in parallel, I feel like a lot of what you'll see in this house you'd like see at our wedding. There's a lot of like earth tones, and we brought in a lot of just like really casual loungewear and wanted it to feel like when our guests were at cocktail hours, like kind of like they're in our living room. So like a lot of the furniture that you'd see that we rented for our wedding, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of like similar to like the vibe of our house. And that's something that was important to me because we wanted everyone just to feel very welcome and just excited to be together to celebrate. And it is true, I did launch my business about 2 months after our wedding, and I kind of just kept the momentum of wedding planning and was like, I'm gonna keep doing this. And then I started taking on clients for my interior design business shortly thereafter. So it was a really special year. So we welcomed our first daughter in April, and her name's Millie. She is the most special little girl. We're so blessed with her. She just embodies everything we love. She's just like so fun loving and just such a chill baby, and we're having like the time of our lives with her. She's amazing. Our home is in Mill Valley, California. It's a super special place to us. It's just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, about 15 minutes. And we spent almost every weekend here when we lived in San Francisco because there's so much hiking. You're 30 minutes from the beach, such good restaurants, and just a really fun community here that being so close to the city, you just get a lot of different people. And we always just loved the spirit of this town. And so when it came time to decide where we wanted to move after leaving the city, it was like, of course, it's Mill Valley. And we were lucky enough to find this house.
Yeah, and when we were first looking for homes, location was so important to us. So that came at the expense of size. So we found this beautiful home, this very charming home. However, it was a little bit small, and that was a big concern of ours initially. Through Becca's amazing curation, organizing, decluttering all my junk, The house feels anything but small, especially now with our growing family. We just had our daughter. Becca has been able to create this beautiful, rejuvenating, calm, tranquil space for us, even though it is our first home and it's a little bit small, since that's all we could afford at the time.
Yeah, so we lived in 450 square feet when we were in San Francisco, and we loved that apartment. It was similar. It was in like the best neighborhood, best location. We loved that apartment. So then this house is about just over 900 square feet, and then we have an additional space in the cottage, which we will show you. But 900, I was like, this feels huge. Like, this is great. So but when people come over now, it's like, yeah, it is like a smaller space, but we're in like the most walkable part of Mill Valley, especially now with the stroller and the baby. We just set out for the day and we can just walk all over town and even walk up the mountain, and it's just so fun to be in this location, so we're very happy here.
Yeah, and what's unique about this home is that because it's so small, we actually spend a significant portion of our time in every square inch of this home. There's not a room that we don't spend every single day in.
That's true.
And therefore it's been, I thought it would be a challenge of like making every square inch pleasing to be in, and a place where we can recharge our batteries. And like back to Becca's decluttering, her organization, her organization of our shelving has just made it into such a calm space. And again, it just doesn't feel small, and every square inch of this home is beautiful to look at and kind of represents our style and our aesthetic.
Yeah, you have to get really into functional living when you have small space, and especially when you're into the design of things, you have to always be looking at not only the aesthetic, but also like, okay, can we actually store stuff in here? Is this something that I want to look at every day? Because in a small space, you're just the exposure to the rooms. Like you're like, oh yeah, I'm in every room pretty much all the time. So you want to make sure you're not getting sick of anything, or you'll notice that our home has a very neutral palette, and that was intentional because I was like, I wanted the whole house to flow, because you're gonna be walking through the house a lot, and especially with our outdoor area, which we use a ton, just with like indoor-outdoor living in the moderate climate here. I just wanted it to feel very calming, as Kurt said, and just like you're bringing the outdoors in with like just nice earth tones and just really relaxing, tranquil vibes. Welcome to our living room. So this is the first room you walk into when you come into our home. And so it starts as like the entry area as well as like multiple things. So in designing this room, it was super important that we made sure it was multifunctional, and also just like a very warm welcome to the space. And first thing when you walk in that I love about this home is you're greeted by this like epic archway that is original to the 1930s home. And there's just so much charm that everything that we designed in this home, we wanted to make sure it just leaned into that charm and the character of this home. It's really what pulled at our heartstrings when we purchased it. One thing that I love when you first see is the original hardwood floors, and these just make me so happy. And we kept rugs at a minimum because we just wanted to make sure that you could really see these beautiful floors that are original to the home. Another thing about our home that is a signature is the amount of built-in shelving, which was so attractive to us when we purchased the home because it just is so stunning to have these built-in features. The woman who we purchased the home from was actually an avid book collector, so she had tons of books, and the way she described it was she just kept building shelves. So when we first bought this home, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so many shelves, which has really helped me lean into my shelf styling abilities. And I learned the hard way, like, don't rush to fill things and really just appreciate the journey of decorating, because most of these things are pieces that we've picked up from our travels, or I go to the flea market every month, and just really getting things with soul that help tell our story and also just like look really nice, because it is a small home and we look at this stuff all the time. So the shelves are one of my favorite things about the home, and this is right when you walk in, and I just love playing around with these. I'm changing them out seasonally depending on like if we've gotten something new, if I'm swapping something out for another room. And it's just a really, really high impact space, because it's like, wow, this is just like such a beautiful piece of feature. Okay, that was not good.
I frequently, when I'm working from home, I frequently get asked if it's a real background or an actual background when I'm on Zoom calls and whatnot. And it's just a testament to the way Becca's styled these shelves. It looks fake on Zoom because everything's so perfectly curated and color coordinated, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Back to the point of every square inch of this house mattering. Everything's just a delight to look at, which is really special.
Yeah, and I love these shelves because it actually has cabinets as well. So we have like the beautiful display of items, but we also have like really functional toy storage, dog toy storage. We have like our printer in here. Like we do actually have things that have to like exist, and it's nice to have doors to shut. Everything is very organized. When I got pregnant, I literally started nesting immediately, and not everything, including our attic, every single drawer was organized perfectly because I was like, everything needs a place if we're going to fit a child in here. So that was a fun adventure.
For example, I used to just put my keys and stuff kind of wherever the door was, and I quickly learned and evolved to make sure everything has its place because it really makes a difference having that kind of clutter out. So I think just having systems in place, even in a small home, you don't have to have your keys and your wallet and all your clutter out all the time. There's a place for those things, and it makes such a big difference to just the mental clarity of not having junk all over the place.
There's two things we're trying to accomplish. We wanted it to be really great for entertaining and also make this like room feel very open because it is the entry area. So we want people to walk in and feel like there wasn't closed off space. But we also are like avid TV watchers, and there's no shame in that. We like love watching a movie. So we do also have a very large TV here. And I like it because you don't see it immediately when you walk through the front door. I remember the day that you came home from this from Best Buy. I was like, oh, that's a little big.
Yeah,
but
I was in charge of the TV. That's my only touch in the house.
But now that we have it, like we spend so much time watching movies, having friends over to watch games, etc. And like having a big TV to me is something that like now that we've had it, I'm like, it's so important, and like making it work in this space. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, we have a giant TV in our house, but I feel like it really works, especially like when you pair it with a console. Like once we had the TV, I was like, we need to find a wide enough console. You always want the console to be wider than the TV, general rule of thumb. So this was actually a Facebook Marketplace find that I actually refinished and stripped myself to just be a lighter wood to go with the floors and the rest of the furniture in the house, which this is one that I came home with and you're like, what are you gonna do with that? Because it was like on wheels, super dark wood, super dated, but it's real wood. And the beautiful thing about real wood is like you can always bring it down to its natural state. But this has been an awesome piece because it was like $40. I think all in once materials, it was like $100. And it has that like raw and finished look that I love. And it's nice that it's big enough that we have a lot of storage, and it makes the TV feel like a little less monstrous. And then in terms of the seating arrangement, so we entertain a lot, and we're also here with the baby a lot, and we spend a lot of time in this room. So this couch is, we talk about longevity, this couch, I bought this for my studio apartment before Kurt and I moved in together, but it's a classic couch and super neutral. You'll see a lot in our house is neutral. And this just goes to show that if you buy a timeless, good, well-made couch, it can stay with you for 7-8 years. And it has just every apartment, every house, it just works. And then we bought this house and I was like, it looks like we bought it for this, and like it's a little bit weathered, and it definitely has like, you know, grown with us. But I'm just so happy that it works in this space because it has the chase lounge, so it's nice like with the baby if we're cuddling or like we have people over, and we have also this chair over here, so it's very conversational. So this room works really well for us. And we have this awesome fireplace too here, which has a gas insert, so we can just turn it on in the winter when we're like drinking our coffee or we're having friends over, and it just makes it super cozy and also just adds a lot of heat, which is awesome. One thing about our house that you'll notice is that the two places I bring in color primarily are in the art and in flowers. So it's a very neutral backdrop, and that was intentional when we were curating the house and just like picking pieces, as I wanted it to feel really cohesive. And as you're walking through the house, it kind of just, every room feels like an extension of the next one. But our art is where we really like to make a statement and have high impact. So this piece is by an artist who's out of Sausalito, and she's amazing. And this piece is very bold, and it's something that has just, it catches your eye immediately when you walk in. It's abstract. It has like this really cool dimension to it, and just like layered chalk and paint. And I think it's just amazing the way it plays with the different colors and the way the light bounces off of it throughout the day. And it's a lot of color when you think about the rest of our house, but I love it because art's a really cool way to bring in different colors. You can always take it off the wall and, you know, move things around. And I love that about art. It's like not like you're painting the entire wall. So we love this piece, and it's been with us we got this in our apartment in San Francisco, and it's been in this house too. And I think it will just be with us forever. This coffee table it's a vintage find. It has a stone top with these like awesome wood legs. And this is a great example of a piece that we had to wait for. We had a rattan basket coffee table I originally bought because I was like, oh, I want something lightweight for the space that doesn't feel too bulky and just was very easy to navigate, but it wasn't really functional. Like you could barely put coffee on it. Like it's a coffee table, you gotta be able to put coffee on. So, and we sometimes eat in front of the TV. And so I saw this on Instagram, was able to make an offer from a vintage seller, and we were able to get it. And it's been such a great piece because we can put all their crap on it, but also it's just so nice to look at, and it's so sturdy and just a great, great table. And I love the stone top because it adds this like great texture. We're really into that earth tone, earthy material, and we have a lot of light wood and rugged wood, but like I love this stone that brings in that another layer of depth here. Feeling of home to me and creating this space together has been just an extension of like our life. Like I feel like depending on what season of life we're going through, I feel like our home has reflected that. And first when we moved here, we were like really into entertaining, which we still are, but I feel like we just wanted to make sure like this space was really functional for having people over. And I was all about making sure that just the guest experience was like top notch, which I still am. But then now it's like, the feeling of home, it's like we're focused on our family and making sure our daughter has places to play and has the space she needs and is happy here in our home. And it's just that feeling of your home grows with you. And I think it's not a static feeling of like, oh, this is how our home is always gonna be. It's the evolution of like where we are. And for me, like coming home, I've always valued just having it be a serene space, a calm space, so that when we're here, we can just recharge, we can feel like our most authentic selves. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people create their dream home, because I'm a big believer that you can have a very aesthetically pleasing and happy home that's also super functional for you and your family. Like I don't think you have to compromise one or the other, and that's something that we've learned together too. And now like growing our family and all this fun things that are ahead of us, it's just nice to see that our house like has carried us through that season of life. So here we are in our dining room. This room is another very multifunctional room. We do a lot in this room. This is where we entertain. It's where some days like we'll work from home here. I always have things like laid out when I'm like in the middle of a project. This room really does feel like an extension of the living room, especially with this like great archway. I feel like it just really flows. Like I love that when we're entertaining, if like people are in the living room and if other people in the dining room, it feels like we're all in one room. So it's just a very fluid space. And as well, it's like right off the kitchen, and I love when I'm cooking to still feel like I'm part of like the activities. So it's just, I really love the flow of these three rooms together. The nice thing about the dining room is that we get such good light at the end of the day. So I love around like that 5 p.m. in the summer months, like it just gets such great light, and the white walls, it just like plays around in the space. So it's just like, I feel like this becomes like a really, really happy room around like 5 p.m. Another great thing about this room is the shelves. So once again, great built-ins here, and styled these to just feel like super collected and fun, so that when we're eating, it's just like reminds us of like places we've been and traveled, as well as just treasures I've collected over the 3 years that we've lived here. One of my favorite pieces is on the bottom right, a confit pot from Provence. When we were there and we were just like exploring all the markets, and it just, every time I see that, it makes me so happy just to have that as a memory of that trip. So this painting is also by another local San Francisco artist, and we love this one because of the lemons. Our last name is Meyer, so we are big fans of the Meyer lemon, and this was like our nod to the lemon. So when we saw this, we were like, this is perfect. So this French elm hutch, this was a great piece that just like shows you that there's just power in just waiting for the right piece. We actually had like a mirror and a console table here when we moved in, and I always just felt like it was a weird use of space, because I wanted something that made a statement here that was also functional. And it's a very white room. We have very white walls. So I wanted it to have some warmth and like to add some depth. So this was a Facebook Marketplace find of a woman who collects antiques from all over, but she like sources from estate sales. And I had to have it when I saw it. And I was like, this is everything I've been looking for in a hutch, because it has this awesome wavy glass. So it has ability to display some of our more like entertaining materials and some of our glassware, other ceramics that we have, but it also has closed cabinets. So we are able to hide a lot of like, there's like wine bottles in there. This is like literally our junk drawer. Like there's just like things that are like bottle openers, matchboxes, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like entertaining materials, but also like I feel like we have like phone chargers in there. So it's just nice that this is such a stunning piece, but it also serves such a purpose, and it also like adds such height to this room. And I was just like awesome. I think we bought this like about a year and a half ago. So we'd already lived here for a year when I found it, and I was like, it just really brought the room together.
Yeah, when we're entertaining, this room acts as kind of a blank canvas for Becca, which is really cool. So every time we entertain, there's a different tablescape, different flowers, and kind of dependent on the season and which friends we're having over. So it's really cool to see her transform this room just through things like the tablescape, the flowers, and other things. So this room will oftentimes on Friday, Saturday nights look very different than it does right now. And I think playing off the neutral colors of this room is really fun for Becca, because you're able to transform it into a really cool, fun dining experience and entertainment experience for our friends. Becca and I originally had very differing tastes. That just being, in my days in the city, I didn't have any kind of taste. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know that a living place, a home could be a place that reflects your style and rejuvenates you. To me, a home meant a place to lay your head at the end of the day. So it's been an evolution of my style, and together we've kind of grown what we like and what we don't like. And that's what makes this home so special, is we've gone through the journey together, and then Becca brings it to life in an amazing way.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this is so Becca, and like a lot of this is, like I would say like I'm definitely the one that's like coming up with ideas and concepts for the house, but it's always a partnership, and I'm always like, hey Kurt, what do you think of this? That being said, I have like shown up with a couple Facebook Marketplace finds unannounced and been like, this is our new touch. But Kurt's like grown to love them. But yeah, I mean it's been a journey. We've owned this house 3 years, and every piece we've taken our time with finishing it, and holding anything we keep and have kept, like even this couch we've had like since 3 apartments, and it's been in this house, and everything's super intentional, and we talk about it, and we make sure if we're investing in something, it's a piece that's going to have longevity for us, because we just know that we love quality, and we want to make sure that these pieces are going to be with us. So that's why it has to be a partnership, and it has to be the two of us making these decisions. But it's fun too, like as we travel and like even having a baby, it's like I see the evolution of our style, and all of a sudden I'll be like, hey, like when I did Millie's nursery, I was like, I'm really feeling like we should, go with a little bit of a moodier vibe. And Kurt was like, okay, that's really not our style. The whole house is painted white. And it was kind of this conversation of like, no, I think this is like a cool direction, because it's going to be a very serene place that we're going to be spending a lot of time. She's going to be napping in there, and it was awesome just that we could like bounce ideas off each other, and Kurt could be there to make sure I wasn't like crazy. And yeah, I don't think I've ever made a decision in the house that Kurt hasn't agreed with, or like we've talked about. So maybe a couple, but
yeah. But all that to say, this house would look very messy and very cluttered if I had any of the final decisions on the design of it. So I feel very fortunate to be living inside Becca's brain, essentially, here.
All right, and now let's head to the kitchen.
Welcome to our kitchen.
So this is one of my favorite rooms in the house, for sure. I spend a lot of time in here. I love to cook, but it's also like just the happiest room of our house. I mean, they're all happy, but this room I feel is, when people come over, they're like, wow, like this is such a cute kitchen. But it is a small kitchen. It's about 250 square feet. So it has to be really, really functional with the use of space. And I mean, I kind of like a smaller kitchen because when you're cooking, it's like you can get places faster. Everything's within arm's reach. But sometimes when we're entertaining and people like come into the kitchen with me and they're like talking, I'm like, I need you to move. But so I'm like, go back out there. But we have just great natural light that comes in, especially towards the end of the day when I'm like cooking dinner. We have this olive tree that's off of the window, and it just feels very much like we're in like a French farmhouse, I like to think, a Nancy Meyers movie, whatever it might be. Like, it's just a very, very sweet space. And I would say like the number one thing that this kitchen is known for are the stained hardwood checkerboard floors. And it's just a very fun play on the hardwood floor where it adds this just charming, pulls at the heartstrings feeling. I feel like no matter who comes over, they're like, oh my gosh, these floors. And I love that with the stain, you can still see the wood through the green checkers, but it just adds just a fun layer without it being like a checkerboard floor. So very, very sweet. The rest of the kitchen's pretty neutral, and it's just been a great space for me to style and play with like different kitchen materials. I love to style kitchens as a designer. I think kitchens are my favorite room to design, period. But for styling, because as a cook, I love to bring form with function. So I love things like these cutting boards. Like, it just looks really pretty and adds layers to the kitchen, but it's like super functional. Like, I'm using these cutting boards all the time, especially like making charcuterie boards for guests and all that good stuff. But like, when you look at it, I'm like, oh, this just makes it feel like I'm in the French countryside or something like that. Another thing that I'm known for, or I'm just a big advocate for, is lamps in a kitchen. So you'll notice I have 2 lamps in here, and that is just my favorite way to bring an ambient light to the space and just make the kitchen feel super cozy when we're like doing the dishes at night or after the baby's down. It's just like having the lamps on like a candle. It just feels so great in here. And I think especially when you're in the kitchen, majority of the time we spend here is at the end of the day. I just love being able to have lamps on. So I am a huge proponent of anyone adding a lamp to their kitchen just to add that cozy element to a space. So the glass cabinets, we bought these with the house. So when we moved in, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't live with glass cabinets. That's crazy. I can't have everyone looking at all my stuff. But when we bought this house, weren't really able to make a ton of renovations just because we were like stressed ourselves when we bought it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to embrace my Nancy Meyers self, and I'm going to make these most beautiful styled cabinets, but we also have to have these be all of our plates and all of our glassware. So it's been a fun project of like making things that we use every day be beautiful. And that's something I really believe in, is that when you're reaching for a glass, like, it should be something that makes you happy. And I love that like everything we have is on display, and it just adds another layer to the kitchen. So I've become like actually a huge fan of glass cabinets in a kitchen since then. I feel like I've come a long way, but sometimes we have a couple like dorky mugs that we've gotten at like a gas station on a road trip that those have to go in another cabinet. So get to go with the Italian ceramics. But yeah, we still have stuff that makes us happy, but this has like been a very fun exercise for me in learning that you can have form and function together.
Every Sunday, Becca roasts a chicken, and she makes it a little different every single time, but that's something that I always look forward to. Is on Sundays, she'll roast a chicken, and she'll use some of the herbs from our garden to flavor it, and that's just one of our traditions that I love. So on Sunday afternoons, the kitchen's always a really happy place where Becca's at work on our roasted chicken. Yeah,
I love like that experience of cooking, especially when like slow cooking something, how it makes the whole house smell like it. Like, that's my like favorite thing, is to roast a chicken or slow cook short ribs, because it's like just such an experience that just amplifies our house and just makes it feel that much more cozy and just like us. In this kitchen, it's small, but I wanted every nook to be styled and usable by me. So another thing that I think is just a very fun way to add a styled flair to your kitchen, but still having it be functional. I love cookbooks in a basket, because this makes it not feel like there's just books on the counter. It feels like it's more of a moment. And you can see throughout our house, like, I love using books to style anything, and the kitchen is no exception. It just adds this really lived in feel that I love in a kitchen, because like as someone who spends so much time here, just like every corner when I'm grabbing something, it makes me so happy. We have like another lamp here. This was a vintage find. I'm always just like finding random lampshades and lamp bases, and like I know that I'll meet their match. So it's like, I feel like I found the base first and eventually got myself to the shade, and it's just like the perfect little antique moment here. A crock with wooden spoons is another one of my favorite styling kitchen moments, because it's super functional. Like I'm grabbing at salad tongs every night, but it has this like beautiful ceramic crock that makes me so happy on this antique Turkish riser. And I just love like the juxtaposition of the wood with the ceramics. And another thing I love encouraging people to get for their kitchens, or when I'm working with clients, is I love pepper grinders and just any type of like pepper mill, a really sweet olive oil bottle, because those are things that you reach for every day, but they can be these really special moments and feel very curated. Coming out of the kitchen, you come into this little pantry area that will lead to the garden, but this is a super functional space. We have our pantry, we have more storage for any of our like platters and so forth. We have like our brooms. What else do we have? Like medicine cabinet, all that good stuff. But what's really interesting is that we have our laundry in here. So this is our washer dryer. It's very, very efficient with space. And I think this was just like something when we were looking at the house, I was like, it just felt like very European to be like, have this like sweet small laundry area off of the kitchen. That being said, I think in our next house, we're looking forward to a slightly larger laundry area, but it's a very efficient and awesome use of space in such a small house.
For couples that are buying their first home, I think the first most important thing to do is to align as a couple on what you care about, and then you can kind of zero in on where there will be give and take, especially with a first-time home buyer. Your budget's going to be a little bit more limited, so you likely sacrifice one thing for another thing. In our case, we really put a strong emphasis on location and being in an area and neighborhood that we loved, and that came at the expense of size. Because we aligned on that early on in our home buying journey, there was no surprises, and we were okay with a smaller home, and we had already kind of committed to that. So that'd be my recommendation to any first-time home buyers, is align on what you care about, and that'll make the process a lot easier and more enjoyable.
Yeah, we looked at a ton of homes too. I feel like it took us a while to realize that this was our home, because we did bigger homes in other areas, and we were like, can we picture our life here? And so I think there's no harm in just looking and going, just making sure you figure out what you want, because you might not know until later on in your home buying journey that you're like, oh wait, location actually is number one for us, or actually space is number one, so we're gonna have to not look in this specific neighborhood. Because it took us a while to get to that place, but I feel like no matter what, location seems to be our favorite. Even when we travel, we'll always stay in like a smaller hotel or Airbnb in the neighborhood we want to stay in. So it's kind of like a theme in our life. With first-time homebuyers, it's a journey. Like first it's finding the home, and then you have to go through the process of closing, and then the furnishing and like decoration journey begins. And I tell everyone, just like take your time. Like there is no, like there is this feeling of like, okay, I gotta furnish it, I gotta fill the rooms, but there's so much fun in just taking time to really curate the pieces you want, and like see how your family like lives in that space. Because there could be a room that you're like, oh, I picture this as an office, but then after a couple months of living there, you're like, oh, this makes no sense as an office. We're actually gonna swap this into be a guest room. And I learned that, like a couple things I learned the hard way with this house, where like we have a lot of bookshelves in this house, and the previous owner had an epic book collection, and we didn't really have that, but like having these shelves was such a gift, and I like felt the need to like rush to Target or to Home Goods and like get a bunch of decor to fill them. But then I quickly realized, I was like, stop myself, and I was like, I'd so much rather get intentional pieces from our travels and cool antique and vintage finds that have more meaning and soul, and fill those with the space, so that when I'm like looking at it at the end of the day, I'm like happy and proud of the shelves, and it tells more of our story. And that just takes time. So I think it's really patience, and having those conversations of like what is our style, and like what's important to us. And we've lived here 3 years, and in some ways I'm like, we're just getting started finishing. So I don't think you want to hear that, but that's the truth. Now we're gonna head into the primary bedroom. So here we are in the primary bedroom. So this room is on the smaller side, but when we bought the house, we were like, we want a king bed. So we were adamant of having a king bed, and we made it work. And I think like this is the room we're primarily sleeping in. So it is just a very like relaxing, serene space with a really nice bed, which was something that when we bought the house, people were like, you're not gonna be able to get a king bed in there, and we did. We made it work, but what I love about this room is it never feels small to me because it's just an extension of the garden. We have this beautiful garden view. We always have the window open, like I feel like almost year round, except when it's raining, and you get like beautiful smells of the garden and also just this great view. And like the rest of the house, just kept it super neutral in here, so you could just feel like the garden just pop off the white walls and the neutral bedspread here. So this is just a very happy room. I love what we've done because it's really just a simple space. We have the bed, and then we also have these awesome vintage lamps that are giant. And the rule of thumb is usually you don't want your lampshade to be bigger than your nightstand. However, broke that rule because I had to have these lamps. I got them off Facebook Marketplace, and I came home, and I'm like, the texture that these have, they have the woven detail, the pleated shade, and it just plays off of the other woven elements in the room, and just it has these awesome cozy light that comes out of it because it has like this really thick shade. So when we're in bed at night reading, it's just like a really, really serene vibe. This piece of art is actually a paint from a local painter who painted the Marin Headlands, which is just like 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes, like 10 minutes up the road. So we love this piece. It just reminds me of like our weekends. Like you'll always see us just like taking the dog and the baby hiking, going to see the beach. So I really love that this color palette and just this view just feels very much like what inspired most of the design direction of this house. For the piece above the bed, when we moved in, I wanted something that added texture, and I'd seen framed tapestries and framed fabrics and just like woven materials all over, and I was like, oh, I want to find something that will work perfectly with this room, and I could not find one that was like in our price range that felt like something that represented this space. So I ended up doing it myself. So all I did was I actually just bought fabric by the yard here, and I loved the shapes and the movement of the texture of this tapestry here, and then cut it down to be framed and matted into this like white oak frame.
And one thing I love about the space as well, back to the point of making every square inch of this home count, is you very rarely see cables on anything. So we have lamps, and we have TVs, and we have all the usual things that other people have, but we make an effort to hide the cables just to declutter and make it a really peaceful environment. So I think that's just a small touch that really helps. All right, let's go next door to see Millie's nursery.
All right, welcome to Millie's room. So this is our daughter's nursery, and this room was originally the guest room and also an office hybrid when we moved in, and I always envisioned it that it would be our first child's nursery. And I was planning my nursery before I was even pregnant, but the minute we found out she was a girl, I was like off to the races with planning this space, and I knew I wanted to play on just a feminine pink vibe, but we do have this redwood tree that is directly off of our house, which is very special because here in Marin County, redwoods are like our trademark, and I love the idea that like our daughter would like go to bed every night under this redwood tree, but it does block a lot of light. So this room was painted white like the rest of our house, and I really wanted to wallpaper the walls, and Kurt and I were talking, and he's like, that's gonna like really impact the vibe of this room, and it's gonna be a little bit more moody. And I was like, I think that's what we want. I think this is gonna be just a very sweet space where we're spending a lot of time. She'll be napping, we'll be feeding her, and we just kind of wanted it to have this like zen, just relaxing, special space for her. And that's what it became. And so it definitely has that same neutral, it's not like in your face pink, but I did want it to feel special and whimsical and something that she could grow up with. And the first thing I actually found when designing the nursery was actually this chandelier. It is an antique French chandelier that I found on Etsy, and it was just reminding me of like my own childhood, and it has like pinks and greens and a little bit of yellow. And I was like, that's it, like I'm just gonna start with that, and then I'm just gonna go from there. So that was kind of defined the color palette from there. It was gonna be pink and green, and then I slowly was like, I think we're just gonna do all pink. I found this wallpaper from Sandberg. It is just, I love the botanical feel that it almost feels like it's growing in front of you, and from far away you're kind of like, you can see the pattern, but as you get closer all the details come out at you. Like there's all these different flowers and weeds, and I love that that's special as a child to grow up with a wallpaper that you could like look at every day and like see different things and like play I Spy with the different flowers. And so this wallpaper was the next decision I made, and then it was really coming down to the trim. I wanted to do a play on statement trim. So I've probably looked at like 10, 12 pink paint samples, and this is actually ironically called Just Beige by Benjamin Moore, which is funny because our house is all beige, and I love that they call this Just Beige because it is a beigeier pink, so of course I was drawn to it. But it's this really fun mauvey, purplish, beigey pink, and decided to paint the trim, the ceiling, and the built-in bookcases this color to pop against the wallpaper. And I just love the way it feels so cohesive and just like custom to her. So much of this room, like the rest of our house, is inspired by antiques and by vintage treasures. Millie was popular in the 20s and 30s, so it kind of had this like almost like grandma core like vibe to it, where I was like, okay, like I already felt that this nursery needed to have this like timeless feel to it, and this wallpaper did feel a little bit like it could have been really popular, you know, in the mid-century, like even like 20s, 30s, like when Millie's name was popular, even though it is rising in popularity now. But I loved that I kept coming back to antique items. So once I kind of landed the wallpaper and the trim color as well as the shelves, I found a couple things. These plates were from different places. Some are from Etsy, one is from an estate sale, one's from a flea market, and I kind of picked them up separately, and they all just go together so well, and they have this like fun pink and floral element, and it just felt like a tea party. And I loved that she grew up with this like kind of just like playing pretend, like very girly feminine plates on her wall. I think plate walls are such a fun way when you don't have art to bring in just like a fun element to have on the walls. So that felt very sweet in here. The shelves, like every room in our house, these shelves were here when we moved in, which was really fun because I originally was like, should we knock them down so we have more space in the nursery? But I was like, how cool to have like a display case of all these sweet treasures I can collect for her. So as I was pregnant and like at different toy stores or things that were gifts from friends and family, I was able to add things that I would want on display for her. There are like books that we've read to her, as well as just like nostalgic elements, like this rocking horse was something I found in an antique store, and I was just like, I have to have that for her nursery. And there's also toys that she'll play with someday, like really sweet stuffed animals. And styling these shelves was just such a special moment as an interior designer, and being pregnant, which is like so long, and you're just like so excited to have your baby. And I just like every day would come in here and just like dream of all the times that we'd spend in here. And now having her here and sitting in here and looking at all these toys and just like dreaming with her, it's just like, it's so fun to have these shelves to look at. So these were definitely a labor of love, and like probably one of my favorite projects I worked on. So yeah, most of these things are things that I just like have found. I kept playing with like that pink color and like different like feminine pieces. This was really special. This is actually Kurt's boutonniere from our wedding that we had pressed, and I just love that she would have that in her room with her. It's just like a piece from our wedding, and it just like looks so special in here. It goes like perfectly with the wallpaper. So I love that that is next to all of her toys and just something that we can tell her about someday. This wardrobe was something I had to find early on. So this closet here is actually still Kurt's closet. So Kurt and I have separate closets in the 2 bedrooms of the house. And so I knew that we wouldn't have closet space for our daughter. So I was like, okay, I need to find like a very cute wardrobe armoire, and I found this on Facebook Marketplace from an antique store out of Santa Cruz actually, and I couldn't believe it. It was like so perfect. I love the little sweet heart motif at the bottom. It just felt very storybook and very childlike. Kurt actually grew up in the south of Germany in Bavaria, and this felt like very Bavarian to me, like very something that he grew up with in his house, and reminded me of a piece that my grandma had, and I was just like, okay, this is like too good to be true. So I was able to find this, and it fit perfectly like in between the 2 doorways. So this is where all of her clothes and some of her toys are. So it's just a really fun piece. And what I love about this is it can grow with her throughout her life. Like it can, be in her room forever, or it can be in another child's room. So I think when you're investing in a nursery, it's like important that you're getting things that can really grow with your child, that won't just be like theirs when they're a baby. This was another antique find. I did not want to get a traditional changing table. I really did want to get a dresser that could grow with her and be in her room for however long she wants it to be there. So this sweet changing basket sits on top of this, and then it can, go to another kid or be in her room, but without being like a traditional changing table. It also has great storage. These drawers or where we keep like diapers and all of like some of her other clothes, burp cloths, all that good stuff. I think just having a antique item in your child's room is so great because it's just very durable. This is real wood, it's nice elm, and I think it's just something that like it can patina and age with her, and it's very beautiful, but I'm not worried about it getting kind of rusted up. Other thing when designing a nursery that I think is critical is like comfortable seating. I know that as a designer, but also now as a mom, I'm like, oh, you really need a nice place to sit. You spend a lot of time feeding, rocking, even sometimes now with Millie in her crib, one of us will sit here with her as she falls asleep. So I love this chair. It's from Namesake. It is like this beautiful boucle glider that is actually a recliner too. And when Kurt first sat in it, he's like, oh my gosh, can we have one of these in the living room too? It's so comfortable. But it's just been a great piece for this room that I've spent a lot of time in. And I also just love that it's a great neutral color, and it is a really durable fabric. So it's been with her like spitting up and just like milk and all that stuff. It's just been easy to clean, which is another thing with kids. You want things to be functional and able to clean. That's key. And so this is Millie's crib. So this is probably the one piece that isn't vintage or antique. This was a new crib, but I loved that it had these like sweet spindles, and it felt kind of vintage inspired and went with the rest of the vibe of the room. It just felt very sweet and special. So the art here are these botanical prints that I wanted to get framed in these like lovely brass frames. And I love that they play off the wallpaper. It's just like, she has these like she has the garden view out her windows, and I love that this all just feels like it's like her little secret garden in here. This is a Turkish rug. I purchased this like around the time I bought the chandelier actually, because I wanted something that had a lot of color in it. I actually had not picked the wallpaper at that time, so I actually was like unclear what direction I was going to go with the walls, but I love that there was just a lot of color and dimension in this, that I could go any direction. There's like blues, there's pinks, there's a little green, and that felt really fun. I just also like, I love the quality of a vintage rug. I also love that this pattern with things spilling, and just like kids being kids, like a vintage rug is just so durable and good that the stains kind of blend in with the design of the rug. Okay, now I'll take you out back to our cottage. On the way to the cottage, I wanted to show you our garden. So this is like our second living room, I'd say. Like we spend so much time out here. It gets great sunlight throughout the day, and we just love like reading out here. We bring Millie out here to play. We eat out here. It's just like such a great extension of our house.
The former owner of the house was an avid gardener, so we inherited a lot of her original plants. But we've kind of added our own flair to it and made it our own, of removing a few things and adding a few things. But this is a really happy place for us, and a little sanctuary, very peaceful back here.
Yeah, it was such a gift to inherit mature plants and mature trees, and just be able to layer on top of the existing beautiful garden. If you know anything about gardening, like starting from nothing, it's always a very daunting process. You'd be very patient, but for us, it was like we were already starting in such a great place. And there were so many plants here that both of us grew up with and just like felt very drawn to. Like when we toured the house for the first time, we saw that it had a Meyer lemon tree. We're like, oh, it's too good to be true. Us being the Meyers, so we knew we had to have it. So we love having a lemon tree. We also have our herb garden over here. We're growing tomatoes right now as well. I love to cook, so having access to fresh herbs is just such a gift and something I've always dreamed of. And we also have this like 30-year-old Japanese maple tree. It is stunning and just like offers a great canopy of shade so that when we have people out here, we don't always have to be sitting in the sun. We actually like don't even need an umbrella out here because we have such great shade options. Right now we're in August, so our garden is just like in full effect. Like our hydrangeas are just like beautiful right now, and I'd say that we like a less manicured garden and more like wild and kind of a little grown in. Like I like when we're out here, it kind of just feels like you're in your own little garden oasis, your own little world. We're standing in our cottage now. This was originally the garage that the previous owner had converted into a guest cottage. So we are very lucky to have this space because it really serves as a lot of things for us. This couch is a sofa bed, so it pulls out into a queen size mattress, which is nice for when we have guests stay with us. There's also a bathroom in this cottage, which is awesome. So guests have their own space. One of us is always like working in here. This is also our office space and workout area. We have the Peloton and some other workout equipment out here. So this is really multi-purpose, and you're just like off the garden, and it's like a very sweet little room. And every time we have guests stay with us, I feel like they're like, oh, this is such a special area. Like we have this awesome peaked ceiling, and you have like the plants of the garden and all the beautiful flowers right off of you. So it feels like you're just in your little Marin cottage. And so this room, I feel like we had a lot of ideas with this cottage. We wanted it to feel different than the house, but one thing we're inspired by is like the West. We were both born on the West Coast, and we spent a lot of time road tripping around Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and we really felt like this should be kind of like our cowgirl room, but that's loosely interpreted. But the one thing that we did definitely want to hang here, which I think is like the perfect spot for it, is this cow skull that we actually found at this random store on the side of the road in Moab, Utah. And it was one of those things that we hadn't even bought the house yet, right? And we were like, we need this cow skull, like it will go somewhere. And I think it's just like the perfect area for it to hang. And a lot of the other art in this room, I kind of like was like leaning into more of the Western vibe, still in the neutral palette, but wanted it to feel just kind of like our more Western side.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of our house, in that we're able to make it an office as well as a gym, which are two things that were really important to us, and combining the two pretty seamlessly, where you can't even tell that it is a gym, because per Becca's organization and decluttering skills, everything has a place, and when it's time to work out, I know where to find all my gym equipment. So this is a really happy room for us. So what does home mean to me? To me, that the answer is fluid. I think it changes as our lives change and grow and evolve. When we first moved into our home meant a place to entertain and have our friends over. In more recent months, we place a higher value on rejuvenation and charging our batteries. So currently, home to me means a place where I can come and have my batteries filled. So to me, a home can mean a lot of different things, but ultimately it's reflective of what you are going through in your current life and how your home can help you build a better life based on whatever your values are at that current time. And Becca's done such an amazing job of creating that for us at our different stages of life, from first moving into our new home with limited furniture to now raising our newborn baby girl.
Yeah, I think for me, home it's the backdrop of your life. So I think that no matter what, your home is going to be where you are every day, and it just has to be a reflection of you and help tell your family's story. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do and making our home feel very special, because we're here all the time and it's just where we come back to, and it just makes us so happy.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.